Rolex Brabander's learner portfolio. What has he learned so far through his journey in IB English A literature?
So, the first author I would like to talk about is Pablo Neruda and his link to the global issue of communism. But first, what is communism?
Communism is the political or economic perspective that resources should be shared equally amongst us, and that no one is better than the other. Throughout the 20th century, many nations have experienced communist revolutions. Some have stayed communist, like China, while others have moved away from communism, thus its global importance. So, Pablo Neruda. He was the first author my class studied in grade 11. Multiple times, Miss Graves pointed out the romantic nature of his poems. Now, let's cut to the chase. To end our Pablo Neruda unit, our class was assigned to write a commentary on his poem Ode to Bees. This ode, like his many other odes, described seemingly mundane things through metaphors, similes, and other literary devices to greatly aggrandize them. In the poem, Neruda stresses the beauty and selflessness of the bees, sacrificing their lives for the good of other bees and the colony. In my commentary, I picked up on all of these things, but never explicitly mentioned Neruda's political affiliation, since I assumed that we couldn't use our outside knowledge. Bees were obviously a metaphor for communists, with Beedom representing the proletariat revolution or even communism itself. Neruda said that we should let the world be for the unceasing growth of Beedom, which shows that he directly supports the idea that communism should spread throughout the world. In my opinion, the idea of communism is good. What Neruda highlights in the poem is everything that would make communism a good idea: selflessness, equality, support for everyone, lack of conflict, and more. I really like that. But the thing with communism, it, like so many other ideologies and even religions, become weaponized by people and lose its values. In Russia, the early communism was plagued with famine and a lack of support for the people. In history class, we learned about Chinese communism and how the government became temporary power holders until society could transition to communism. It was just a ploy to gain absolute power. People were killed when they didn't agree with communism. But doesn't communism say everyone is equal regardless of where you come from or what you do? Also, I feel like life in a full communist society would be pretty boring. Everyone gets the same resources regardless of how hard you work, so you have nothing to strive for, nothing to accomplish. You are forever stuck at where you are.
Anyways, writing the commentary on the Ode to Bees was very helpful. It required a very analytical mindset and put me on the top of my game, which will prove to be very good practice for the IO. The next author I would like to talk about is Yu Huang.
I don't remember all too much about his book, China in 10 Words. I thought it was decent. I remember finding his anecdotes and memories very interesting. Our class discussed the idea of how memories can change with time and how events always have different perspectives to them. So I guess the global link is about the differences in perspectives and how they can change between cultures, time periods, and even individuals. To expand on this idea, Miss Graves gave our class an opportunity to explore points of view through shared experiences. We read an article about a man and his daughter's hiking trip and how their experiences differed. We then reflected on one of our own shared experiences. My shared experience was with Julian. Last Halloween, we went to Canada's Wonderland to see what Halloween Haunts was all about. So, for the learner portfolio last year, we separately wrote a collection of the events and then compared them. Not that much time had passed between the experience and writing the recollection, so the passage of time didn't affect our memories as much. It was mostly a difference of point of view between our memories. What I found was that Julian's recollection read a bit like a story or literature, while mine was focused on small details. This highlights the difference between us. Julian might remember key events and want to write something that sounds cool, while I want to write a recollection where you see all the insignificant details so that feels like you were really there. I guess just kind of want to dump all the information in and let the reader choose what was important and significant. But when I talk about a difference in perspectives between us, I mean more that there was a difference in how we remember it. What we did there was the exact same, which means there wasn't much of a difference between what we actually experienced. This is different to Yu Hua's book, which shows us his experiences and opinion of the Cultural Revolution, while another Chinese man may write about a very different cultural revolution, not only differing in perspective, but also in the core experience of it.
Studying this book, in addition to the memory activity, made me fully understand just how different and unique every person is, and how, although we share the same world, we all experience it completely differently.
One of the controlling ideas that I was brainstorming for the higher level English essay is that George Orwell creates a casual and conversational tone throughout his essays by using a number of different literary devices which greatly help him to convey his message. I created the following mind map to show my thoughts on George Orwell's style. The mind map has George Orwell's style at its center, and the first level of branches show some of his most common stylistic elements, while the second level of branching highlights how each stylistic element has an effect on the presentation of his works. In the George Orwell unit, we had to write a pastiche using 4 elements of Orwell's style. My pastiche, called Forgotten Sacrifices, focused on the underappreciation of female soldiers and used Orwell's elements of an anecdote, vivid imagery, formal yet casual diction, as in a conversation, and first and second person pronouns. It was a while ago, but if I recall correctly, I found it difficult to correctly implement the imagery. Too often would I focus on the intricate details of the scene, which took away from its overall meaning and sometimes made it harder to understand what was going on. It was a long process of editing, which was compounded by the limited word count. By creating a work using Orwell's own elements, it helped me to further understand his style on a more fundamental level and gave me a true sense of where he was coming from. I found it an interesting and intellectually stimulating assignment. To reiterate, my brainstormed controlling idea is that George Orwell creates a casual and conversational tone throughout his essays by using a number of different literary devices which greatly help him to convey his message.
My main concern with this controlling idea is that it might be too broad. It does not focus on any of his specific works, but rather his overall style. If I were to choose this for the HL essay, I think I might focus it on how his style helps convey his message in a specific essay, while including quotes which highlight each element and also going into detail of each element's effect on the reader. My second brainstorm controlling idea is about Death of a Salesman, written by Arthur Miller.
It is as follows. Willie Loman's life is defined by his failed dreams and how he tries to project them onto his son Biff. Admittedly, I haven't done much to develop this idea and I'm nearing the time limit of this video, so I'll give just a brief overview of my thoughts so far. So the story practically starts with Willie complaining about Biff's lack of direction in life. Willie's criticism of Biff is revisited many times throughout the story, which we see here and here. When Happy mentions a business proposal that he and Biff could do, Willie immediately lights up. He loves the idea of his sons working together and the idea of them being successful. He was always so confident that Biff would be successful since he was well liked, while Bernard, although smart, was not well liked and would thus not be successful. This is ironic for 2 reasons. The first being that Willie prides himself as being well liked but is unsuccessful. In fact, he actually sincerely believes that being well liked is the key to success. The second reason for irony is that Bernard actually was successful. Again, these are just preliminary thoughts. I noticed some other things, but I haven't organized or looked in depth into them yet.
My concern for this controlling idea is that it might be too explicit. A lot about the relationship between Willie and Biff is outright stated in the book, and I might not be able to display good analysis because of this. And that concludes my learner portfolio.